Welcome, everybody. My name is Councillor Gord Perks, and I am the chair of this budget subcommittee. We have quorum, so I'd like to now call this meeting to order. Although we may be meeting in different locations today, the budget committee would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today's meeting is being held in person at the Council Chambers at Etobicoke Civic Centre. Members of the public who are registered to speak are in the room with us and also on video conference. This meeting is being live streamed, and you can find the link at toronto.ca/council. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, we are meeting today as a subcommittee of the Budget Committee. Councillor Chris Moyse, who will be rejoining us shortly, Councillor Amber Morley, or Deputy Mayor Amber Morley, and myself are members of one of two budget subcommittees that have been established to hear public presentations. I note also online that Councillor Stephen Holliday is joining us. Our City Council colleagues, Councillor Shelley Carroll, Councillor Lily Cheng, and Councillor Jamal Myers are meeting right now at the Scarborough Civic Centre to hear public presentations on the budget. We have a number of speakers signed up to speak at our three meetings today at Etobicoke Civic Centre, as well as a number of deputants registered to speak at the Scarborough Civic Centre. I want to thank everyone who is registered to speak to the Budget Committee today. For those who are speaking, here is how our process works. We have speakers in person and online. If you're online, the video conference host will activate your microphone when it's your turn, and you can turn on your video if you'd like. I will call each name on the list in order. You will have 5 minutes to speak to the Budget Committee. After you speak, please stay with us for a moment because members of the committee may wish to ask you questions. After any questions from the committee, you may stay and listen or follow the rest of the meeting on YouTube. The clerk has received emails and communications from the public about the 2026 budget. Those communications are made available to members of Council on CMP, the clerk's meeting portal. I encourage all members of the public to send their comments to the Budget Committee throughout the budget process by emailing buc@toronto.ca. This is the public's opportunity to speak about the budget. It is also our opportunity to consider your comments and input before we make our recommendations to the Mayor. We appreciate you taking the time to participate in the City of Toronto's budget process. Okay, let's start with our first speaker. The first person I have listed is Kim Adlard. I believe Kim is registered as online. Hi, Kim, I see you.
Yes, hi, thank you. I'm here.
I can hear you too. So whenever you're ready, go ahead. You've got 5 minutes.
Thanks, Councillor Perks. Greetings, Budget Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Kim Adlard. I'm a disabled white settler residing in Toronto Centre and coordinator for the GTA Disability Coalition. The GTA DC is a systemic advocacy project convened by the Centre for Independent Living in Toronto. We work in collaboration with organizational partners to advance disability, poverty reduction, deeply affordable and accessible housing, and accessible transit. I'm going to speak to the critical need for the city to increase deeply affordable and accessible housing today. Toronto is home to hundreds of thousands of people with a range of disabilities, and along with deaf residents, we are represented within all cultural communities and live in all neighborhoods across Toronto, and we vote. Distressingly, disabled renters pay an average of 44% of their income on housing, compared to 35% for non-disabled renters. Yet we remain largely invisibilized within the city's housing initiatives, even though we experience poverty and housing disparity at a higher rate. More so for disabled Indigenous people and other disabled racialized residents, queer and trans, disabled folks, and disabled youth. In fact, findings from Covenant House's recent youth homelessness report indicates that inaccessibility is one of the key barriers to obtaining equitable housing, including vital shelter space for disabled youth. We appreciate the city's expansion of the luxury home tax that will support poverty reduction and housing programs such as Rent Safe and Rent Bank. In addition to raising individual rent bank funding amounts, the city must increase the number of available grants to adequately meet growing need and increase MURA funding, especially for accessible units. Furthermore, it is urgent that the city direct additional investment into primary prevention by increasing the number of new units that are deeply affordable and accessible, so disabled Torontonians are justly housed. It is troublesome that many of the city's housing announcements include mention of affordable units, but rarely, if ever, do you clearly state how many accessible units there will be. For MURA sites, while disabled people are named as a priority tenant population, I cannot locate any information about how many units are accessible across all properties, nor if the city expects all projects embed accessibility within their planning. And from what I have reviewed, there's not even a mandatory section in the MURA submission to indicate accessible upgrades. Unfortunately, the city's own housing TO action plan dashboard doesn't even include accessible units as it reported data. Because data is essential to program and policy improvement, I asked the city to direct some of the $2 million yet to be allocated toward research that will assess the status of accessible housing, where the gaps are, and the actions the city must take. This research must include disabled Torontonians as well as the knowledgeable leadership of disability organizations. To recap my asks, increase the number of rent bank and grants and MURA funding, boost the number of city-funded units that are deeply affordable and accessible, and increase funding for accessibility retrofits. Immediately act on current disability and city housing data. To end, I recognize that Toronto is navigating a housing crisis, but to be clear, it is a crisis of deeply affordable housing and more so for accessible housing that will only lead to rising inequity and harm if left unaddressed. Let's ensure that 2026 is the year that the city chooses to advance a truly affordable and accessible Toronto through a right to housing, human rights lens, so that deaf residents and disabled Torontonians are sufficiently housed in the way you all expect to be. This is equity, this is justice, this is a Toronto for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Kim? No? Kim, thank you so much for sharing that with us today.
Thank you so much.
The next deputant I have listed is Aldo Carinci. Aldo Carinci. No? Andrew Blackwell. Good afternoon, Andrew. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. Is that working? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm Drew Blackwell, a member of the Board of Directors of the Mimico Residents Association. As a voice for 40,000 residents in the southeast portion of Ward 3, we are pleased to work with the city to ensure that the ongoing development of this area is sustainable, with good infrastructure, transit, and other public services, as well as effective restoration and conservation of the remarkable natural environment we enjoy on the shore of Lake Ontario. We've reviewed the capital investments included in the current draft of the 2026 budget and are pleased to see provisions to extend Legion Road, to expand our new Grand Avenue Park, and to develop public space at the old train station across from the planning disaster known as the Mimico Ghost Station. As you know, We share your frustration with the repeated failure of reliance on private developers and Metrolinx, both at Mimico Go and at the long-promised Parkland Go. We will support the city's efforts to find a better way to build the transit service our community so desperately needs. The area stretching from that old train station on Royal York Road to the former Christie site on Parkland includes huge lots of vacant land that could house homes and businesses. It also includes the severely damaged wetlands next to Bonar Creek and the abandoned woods and grassland bordering our beloved Mimico Creek, the recent victim of a major chemical spill. Despite the decades-long effort of development charge financing attempted along this stretch, the area is restorable. In fact, it provides an extraordinary and unique opportunity to build the city within a park that has and should continue to provide the vision of what we aspire to create by respecting, recovering, and enjoying the ravines, urban forests, parklands, and lakeshore in the meeting place we know as Toronto. 27 years ago, in 1999, the Toronto Region Conservation Authority established the Etobicoke and Mimico Creek Watersheds Task Force. In 2002, the task force completed a major report, Greening Our Watersheds, that provided a detailed strategy for the two creeks in Ward 3. It outlined the neglect that began in the 1950s, recalled the 1985 International Joint Commission that the Commission had identified the two creeks as one of Toronto's areas of concern, and recommended an ongoing watershed coalition. The report concludes, the task force has created a plan that will take these polluted creeks and disconnected landscapes and make them vibrant, connected, and sustainable. A plan that will educate those who live, work, or play in the watersheds as to how they can live in harmony with their natural surroundings. In order to realize our vision, we must respect, protect, and regenerate the natural and human heritage of the watersheds. If the Watersheds Coalition uses these principles as a guide to implementing the strategic recommendation of greening our watersheds, then in the year 2025, last year, the Etobicoke and Mimico Creek watersheds will be healthier and more sustainable. It is the task force belief that the future Watersheds Coalition will be able to fulfill the vision of the watersheds, where people live in harmony with the environment, where the water is clean, where green spaces are vital and connected, and where fish and wildlife thrive. In the 24 years since those words were written, significant steps have been taken to fulfill that vision for Etobicoke Creek. Today, thousands of people walk and cycle in the Etobicoke Creek Trail and see the fish coming up to spawn. We are pleased that the 2026 city budget contains funds to build the Sherway missing link in the Etobicoke Creek Trail. Unfortunately, the recommendations for our poor, suffering Mimico Creek have not received the same attention. In 1998, the State of the Watershed Report recommended every estuary creation at the mouth and a pedestrian bridge over the creek for Mimico. The estuary was created and the pedestrian bridge was built. Many thousands of Torontonians cross it every day. You can come and see. At Lakeshore Boulevard, however, the improvements stopped. The 1998 recommendations included proposals for wetland and native forest east of Legion Road, wetland habitat, forest cover, trail development, naturalization north of Lakeshore Boulevard on the west side of Creek.
Drew, I'm afraid you're at time.
Gord,
One
Gord,
final sentence.
all right, I'll just jump to the final thing, what we are asking for. We urge you to direct the Parks and Recreation Department's Western District Capital Projects Management Team to review the design for the Mimico Creek Trail from Parkland Boulevard to the Queensway, to link it to the planned extension of the Grand Avenue Park, and to find a way to begin construction of that short, inexpensive trail of less than 2 kilometers. The thousands of us who live in Mimico and Humber Bay will support you, and it is time to take the first step towards realization of the vision so eloquently articulated by the task force 24 years ago. Don't make us wait 24 years more.
Thanks, Drew. Deputy Mayor Morley has got a question for you, but before she asks it, I just want to say you've done this old environmentalist's heart good by reminding us of the International Joint Commission Area of Concern program.
I remember, Gord, when you used to work and we're shadowing David Peterson.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, and I remember what it was like. Yes, it was. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us today, Andrew, for your ongoing advocacy in this area. We're really glad to be working with you and the MRA on moving this piece of work forward. Are you aware that there is about $700,000 that has been moved from the Humber Bay Shores community to TRCA specific to this project? I'm glad to hear that. I'm a bit surprised because over the last 2 months, I have made, I think, 5 different efforts to find out from TRCA who was in charge of what is on their website as developing plans for Mimico Creek Trail, and they are unable to tell me. In fact, I've gotten responses saying, we will let you know as soon as we have someone who is designated to work on this. So if working
there's
through-
money there, I hope they finally put somebody to work with it.
That's the next step on it. So we'll continue to stay connected on it, and we are working to move it forward. So thanks again for the
That's good news.
advocacy
Thank
today.
you, Amber.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, Gord.
Thanks, Drew. The next deputy I have listed is Sammy Pritchard. Is Sammy online? Hi, Sammy. Welcome.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. You've got 5 minutes. You can start when you're ready.
Great, thank you, and good afternoon. As noted, my name is Sammy Pritchard. I am the Director of Advocacy and Communications at YWCA Toronto, which is the city's largest multi-service organization serving women, girls, and gender diverse folks. Every day we see how government budget and policy decisions impact whether families can stay housed, escape violence, access quality childcare, or secure stable employment. From across the city, more than 1,300 people turn to our program and services for support to rebuild their lives. And much of this is made possible because of our strong partnership with the city. And for that, we are very thankful. And we want to express our gratitude for safeguarding and expanding essential services under extraordinary fiscal pressure. Investments in poverty reduction, TTC fare capping, Wheel-Trans services, service hour extensions, and expanded social and crisis support programming are all very welcome. At the same time, our dedication to the best possible outcomes for Torontonians leads us to offer several observations grounded in a gender equity lens on what is needed to improve and strengthen our communities. Women, especially single mothers, racialized women, and survivors of gender-based violence, experience some of the deepest housing precarity in the city. As Toronto's largest gendered housing provider, we see how critical eviction prevention programs like the EPIC program and the Rent Bank are. We acknowledge the city's leadership on measures like the rent eviction bylaw, especially when provincial action has fallen short. But the reality is we are losing affordable homes faster than we can build them. Every time a building is privately sold, rents skyrocket and people get displaced. This is why strengthening and expanding the MURA program is so important. Bringing existing buildings into non-market ownership is one of the best ways to keep people housed. We know that the city cannot solve the housing and homelessness crisis alone, and we support your advocacy for the long-term investments that must come from the province and the federal government. And I also want to speak to the interconnected crisis of intimate partner and gender-based violence. We are grateful for the staff resources the city has dedicated to working with the IPV-GBV working group and for the leadership and partnership shown by Councillor Chang and her team. But despite the city declaring GBV an epidemic, we have not yet seen new dedicated funding attached to that commitment. Community partners have stepped up to support the city's work, but without sustained investment, we worry about what will happen to this momentum without stable long-term funding. Housing is only part of what families need to thrive. When childcare is unavailable or unaffordable, parents, especially single parents, are forced to reduce their hours or leave the workforce entirely. Unfortunately, the 2026 budget does not include the municipal level investments needed to support existing childcare providers. Our childcare reconciliations dating back to 2023 are still outstanding, and we have recently learned that the 2025 audit guidelines will not be released until Q1 2026 after our annual audit is complete. These timing issues, along with uncertainty about whether retroactive salary costs from April to December 2024 will be reimbursed, make it difficult to plan and stabilize our childcare operations. We are asking for support that helps streamline and move these processes along so that we can focus on what matters most, caring for children and supporting the families who rely on us. This week is Emergency Shelter and Homeless Service Worker Appreciation Week, and it could not be more timely. In our shelters, we continue to see the toll that low wages and the growing complexity of needs takes on the very people who hold this system together. Community-operated frontline shelter staff who are predominantly racialized women cannot sustain themselves on our current wages. Organizations like ours are losing talented workers to the city because our funding does not allow us to offer comparable wages. We are grateful for the city's $7 million in enhancement funding for community-operated shelters, and we urge you to maintain or increase it to $8 million with consideration for our shelter managers and support staff who are not currently included. Additionally, we understand the rationale behind the cuts to the shelter system budget, but fear what remains does not consider the scale of need in this city. Finally, I want to touch on nonprofit sustainability. While the CPIP inflationary increase is welcome, inflation, particularly in wages and rent, is still eroding our capacity. Nonprofits are essential partners delivering critical gender equity services across the city. We encourage Council to build on the positive groundwork of this budget by making strategic investments in housing, childcare, wage enhancement, and nonprofit partners guided by lived experience in an intersectional gendered lens. When women and caregivers are supported, entire communities thrive. Thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to working together towards more just and equitable Toronto.
Thank you, Sammy. Like literally right at 5 minutes. You practiced that, didn't you? Are there any
I had
questions for
some.
Sammy? No? Thank you so much for sharing that important perspective with us.
Thank you very much.
The next deputant I have listed is Olivia Blondin. Hi, Olivia.
My way.
Welcome.
Thank you. Is this still on? Yep, I can hear myself. Sorry, I'm not a great public speaker, but just forgive me as I flip through my...
Don't worry, neither am I. Just relax, enjoy, and give us your best 5 minutes.
Sure, okay. Hello, council members. My name's Olivia Blondin. I'm here to tell y'all about my experience with youth homelessness and just the general criminalization of poverty that we see on the rise, not just in Toronto, but kind of all across Canada. This will actually be my third time deputing about the same issue to implore you to redirect the $93.8 million increase to TPS, the fifth consecutive increase since in COVID 2021 was no increase, and listen to the people telling the city in their own studies that police are not housing them or feeding them or keeping them safe. They are further marginalizing them and pushing them to the side. So by 19, I had lived in 10 different dwellings, on the street. I couch surfed in shelters. Before graduating the 8th grade, I attended 4 elementary schools and walked to everyone because buses just trapped me in a hell of bullying and harassment for being deeply, deeply poor. In the 9th grade, my landlord sold the house we were renting from under us and evicted us mid-January. So I moved with my family in the middle of a blizzard in the middle of the night in January, something thousands of low-income and unhoused people do constantly from being displaced by the police. Like feeling my fingertips go numb as I chose speed over warmth, hail pelting my face, and each breath is a prayer, like inhaling ice water. the engine on my brother's truck seized because it was so cold, and we pushed it up the road about 3 blocks, I think, loaded with our things in garbage bags, to a vacant house like up the street. Ooh. And we squatted in this house as my mom busted her ass going to city appointments, coordinating with people, calling services that were already woefully underfunded. And I started working for cash under the table to help her afford the heat in this place. And, you know, most of the time we ended up sleeping in layers and using 2-liter plastic bottles of hot water anyways. So the city's own count has 15,400 unhoused people in Toronto about the end of 2024, 41% of which said that lack of income was the #1 reason they were unhoused. 88% of, I think, the smaller group of over 800 asked the city for subsidized housing when they were asked. Toronto police and the city continually displacing people by violent encampment sweeps only sends them closer to their death. Disabled folks, Black and Indigenous folks, are disproportionately unhoused because of systemic oppression that is emboldened by over-policing, which sends homeless people into a revolving door of jail to streets. We've known this for decades. For merely existing, they just keep getting shoved to the side. The criminalization of poverty in this way is overwhelmingly to blame for the unhoused crisis. I'm lucky to be here and to be housed right now, and so are all of you. We're not stronger, we're not smarter, we're not more disciplined, we're not better, we're not morally superior, and we are not more deserving just because we have the luck and the gratefulness to be housed in whatever way that's happened. I do really commend the investment in housing supports and in rent bank initiatives specifically, and I vehemently support the luxury property tax. But just imagine what $93.8 million instead of like 2.6, for example, could do for thousands.
Olivia, I'm going
Yeah.
to have to stop you. You're at time.
That's okay.
And if I can just say so, don't ever be nervous again. You articulated your case very clearly and powerfully.
Thanks.
Yeah. Are there any questions for Olivia? No?
Thanks.
Thank you so much for that. Brian McLean. Hi, Brian. Whenever you're ready.
Super. Thank you for all the consultation with citizens and the opportunities to learn that your committee and council as a whole have provided. My name is Brian McLean. I live in Ward 2. I'm a founding member of the all-volunteer Etobicoke Climate Action, and we want to express our support to the Mayor and the Budget Committee for maintaining priorities and services in this year's proposed budget, somehow at the inflation rate. I've attended several meetings to try to educate myself about the process, starting with the city manager's address last fall at University of Toronto about the whole process and their efforts to reduce costs where they can. I would have attended the consultation in October here in Etobicoke, except it coincided with Councillor Morley's Fall Fest. So I hope that those scheduled, hers was scheduled months in advance. So somehow city staff didn't consult with the councillors, so it was clear it wouldn't conflict with something. I deputed at the Infrastructure and Environment Committee in December, attended a TCAN, Toronto Climate Action Network workshop last Saturday. I've watched a couple of town halls by Councillor Perks and another councillor, and I attended last night's budget town hall that Councillor Morley hosted, which was excellent. So Etobicoke Climate Action is a member of the Toronto Climate Action Network, a group of over 50 organizations operating in Toronto. We're also a member of Green Neighbours Network, And I've started attending meetings of Strong Towns Toronto, which is another really interesting group who has started a chapter here in Toronto. And I've started attending meetings of SNAP, Rexdale SNAP, which is the TRCA Sustainable Neighborhood Action Plan, to see how it engages residents in greening and making their neighborhood more sustainable. Today I arrived by TTC buses, but in previous years I think I've come by bike on one or two occasions when streets allowed. Not a good idea today. My landlady, when she sees me leaving, often offers me her car. So I'm pleased not to be adding one more car to our streets, but that requires the DTC to be operating at great levels and when weather permits, that cycling is safe. We are pleased to see a fare freeze on the TTC for the third year in a row, and the beginning of the fare cap later this year, as well as modest increases in service. We're a fast and efficient and affordable public transit system is an important investment in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. In addition to reducing the number of private vehicles on the road, it supports equity by increasing accessibility to services and amenities for everyone. We're happy to see the city also helping low-income tenants to adapt to the changing climate with a maximum heat bylaw and supplying air conditioners to vulnerable households. During the 2021 heat dome in BC, over 80% of the people who died, and it was hundreds of people, died in their homes. Seniors dying in their homes. So we also think that making heat pumps, now there are apartment-sized heat pumps that are being offered in New York City and in some European cities. So that's something that I think staff is beginning to look at, and that's an encouraging development. That helps with air conditioning in the summer and heat in the winter. We also agree with tree planting to increase the city's canopy, which assists with cooling. We agree with continuation of community climate grants with a particular focus on youth and Black and Indigenous communities. We are glad that there are no cuts to programs that encourage building owners to reduce emissions. We're happy that there's an increase to the Environment, Climate, and Forestry Division budget, though it's very small, and other programs that assist with mental health workers. So our big ask, and my colleague Ann Keary from the Toronto Climate Action Network, where she's co-chair, she's going to speak about this at a different deputation, but it's about communication on climate issues. The average person, I think, still doesn't appreciate how it's affecting their lives. And the good that the city is doing is not communicated enough, we think. Just one example, rain barrels are proposed, and people don't necessarily, even if they order one, don't necessarily use it, I'm told. But I just heard from somebody who's a soil scientist who says how much they benefit the soil
Brian,
and the biodiversity. So that's my ask, is to improve communications, and has many more examples of how that might be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Brian? No? Thank you so much for your deputation today. Next I have Nital Jathalal, who I believe made a video conference request. They're not online? No? Okay. I'll go to the next person. Giori DeLuca. Giori DeLuca. No? Also not online? Jason Miles. It's been a little while, my friend. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. So you got 5 minutes. Start when you're ready.
Okay. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason Miles. I'm a resident of the Parkdale neighborhood, the same neighborhood today's budget chair resides, Councillor Perks. I'm a resident of Dunn House, Canada's first social medicine building, and as a result of its success, I am pleased with yesterday's announcement that Dunn House Phase 2 has been approved, and when completed, 54 more people will be moving off the streets, out of hospital, and into stable, permanent supportive housing. While this is news to be celebrated, we all need to be mindful that there is still more to do. Last year, there were 100,000 names on the city housing list. Another 16,000 names were added, while 2,000 names came off. We know that there are over 15,000 people living homeless in Toronto currently, so housing is still very much a growing problem. I would like to thank this council for its successes it has achieved towards this, but I still urge everyone that there is still more to be done. Prior to moving into Dunhouse, I spent many years homeless, battling addictions, and years in and out of jail for committing crimes, mostly out of desperation. That has since changed. My brushes with the law are a thing of the past. I'm thriving again now that I'm housed. I'm more than 2 years clean and sober from drugs and alcohol, and this past November I started my first job in several years working for City of Toronto on the Lived Experience Advisory Group. While it was me that did the hard work, these are strides I was able to take having found supports and stable housing. I'm now very active in my community and contribute wherever I can. This is why I think it's so important we look at where we are spending money and choose to spend it where it is most needed. It is not a matter of how can we afford to spend money to help. It's how long can we continue to spend it in the wrong places and keep expecting things will change. Toronto Police Services, for example, are already one of the single biggest expenditures of our city's budget. With their current budget, they have made significant strides, and crime numbers across the board are down. We're seeing the biggest decreases there's been in decades. But this also means that our city is safer than it's ever been in decades, and that their current budget is already effective and it's working. Yet they have still come to the table asking for millions more. We really need to look at this before it becomes just another part of their operating budget and yearly expected. Now, I know the decreases we're seeing across the city is not simply because I've changed. It's because they're already making effective use of what they have. Money that, rather than so heavily directed to policing, could be better redirected to help out people off the streets, out of shelters, and into permanent housing. The numbers are out there that prove this. People who are housed perform less crimes out of desperation, reducing police expenditures and reducing time spent in hospitals, in emergency departments, and in hospital beds. The residents of Dunhouse are living proof of this, with emergency visits down by 52% in the first year alone, and 79% reduction in overnight bed stays. In conclusion, the more money spent towards housing and housing stabilization supports like Rent Bank and Mira is not money lost to the system. It actually brings back significantly more money back into the system through other downstream savings. In the first year alone, Dunhouse saved more than $2 million in healthcare. Not a bad rate of return on an investment that cost $14 million. Let's spend the money where it matters most, on the people of this city. Thank you.
Jason, as always, thank you for your courage and your story. Are there any questions? No? Thanks, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Chelsea Dansa. Chelsea, I understand you're online? I see you.
Hello?
And I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Hello and greetings to the councillors in the Budget Committee. My name is Chelsea Gansa, and I'm the Director of Program Operations at Albion Neighborhood Services. I'm here today to speak about the importance of continued funding for community-based research and how it plays a critical role in reducing violence, strengthening neighborhoods, and building a safer city for everyone. Our organization was one of the 3 in the city that received $110,000 to work on a pilot project funded through the federal government's Crime Prevention Action Fund, but then administered through City of Toronto's Safe Collaborative Analytics and Learning Environment, commonly known as SCALE. Through this grant, Albion Neighborhood Services and others work directly with local residents, youth, and grassroots organizations to develop and test practical tools and visual strategies that improve our collective understanding of violence prevention. This project centered lived experiences with the goal of turning community knowledge into action. Through community engagement and co-design sessions, we identified hundreds of community assets, which allowed us to better understand what safety and violence prevention supports already exist in our neighborhoods, where are the gaps, and how collaboration could be strengthened. This is why community research matters. When research is rooted in community, it reflects real lived experience. It produces better and more accurate data, and it leads to solutions that actually work. We see initiatives like this, where research is connected to youth employment, leadership development, and capacity building. These approaches do more than study problems, they actively reduce risk and create opportunity. However, this project and many others like it are funded through short term pilot projects basis. Pilot funding without clear pathways to transition or sustainability means that strong work often stops just as it begins to show impact. I would also like to highlight that only 3 of the 6 Safe TO priority neighborhoods, Zone 1, 2, and 5, have been able to complete this project, leaving 3 additional priority neighborhoods without this critical community based research. This means that a large area of the city still lacks the local data, the tools, and the shared understanding needed to effectively prevent violence and support community safety. Within the 3 zones that did receive the investment, there is no continuation plan or dedicated funding to maintain, update, or build on the work. Without sustained support, the knowledge gathered risks becoming outdated, momentum is lost, and opportunities to deepen the impact across the city are missed. This highlights the urgent need for continued and expanded investment so this work can be completed citywide and sustained over time. If we're serious about violence prevention, then we must be serious about continuing to fund beyond pilot stages, building long term capacity in local organizations, supporting knowledge collection and translation, and implementing the results to guide citywide investments. Community based research is not an add on, it's an essential for infrastructure for a safer city. It helps us prevent violence before it happens, invest wisely, and build systems that work with communities, not around them. I urge Council to continue to expand funding for community based research and projects like this with clear pathways to sustainability. When we invest in communities, we don't just reduce harm, we build a stronger and safer Toronto for everyone. Thank you for your time, and I'm now going to pass it to a local youth resident who would like to share their experience with this project. I believe Riak Sella is on the line.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have React down for a deputation, so I'll go to React next. Before we do that, are there any questions? No? Thank you so much for your deputation.
Thank you.
Okay, React Sala?
Hi, sorry,
Hi,
I'm unable
React.
to access my camera. Is this okay?
I don't see you, but you can go ahead anyway if you'd like.
Awesome. Good afternoon, counselors and staff. My name is Riaksala, and I'm a resident of Ward 1, a youth participant in the Albion Neighborhood Services through the BGC program, the Boys and Girls Club. I'm deputing today to express my support in the continuation of funding for the Children and Youth Violence Prevention Asset Mapping project. I was a part of the Albion Neighborhood Services Children and Youth Violence Prevention Asset Mapping in Zone 2. And this project, named Beyond the Block by Youth Involved, truly opened my eyes and changed how I see my community. It gave me the opportunity to not only learn new skills such as research and mapping using data visual tools called ArcGIS, but also strengthened my teamwork and communication skills and helped me grow into a leader. For the first time, I felt that my voice and my lived experience was genuinely important and mattered. Through this project, I know how much of a better I now have a better understanding of where to go if my friends ever are in trouble, they need support, because our community is rich with resources. But before this work, I wasn't aware of any of them, and it really highlighted it. A key part of the project was identifying and mapping services that help prevent violence in our community. What I appreciated most is the holistic approach. We identified a wraparound service that included things like food and nutrition, mental health support, and legal aid. This reinforced that truly supported youth. This reinforcement truly supported youth. Sorry. And we need a comprehensive and connected services. This work helped me feel more confident and more informed and more connected to my neighborhood. Working on this project also helped me personally as a youth advisor. My voice was amplified and I gained employment through this opportunity. However, I believe that there's still more work to be done. We need to sustain the work that we have been working on for the 2 years now, and we need to sustain, and we need to see and look at the other youth to continue and building my skills. I and other youth want to continue to build my skills and gain employment and contribute to keeping the community safe. With continued funding and support, more youth like me can have meaningful involvement in creating real solutions for our neighborhoods.
Is that the end of your deputation?
Yeah, I just wanted to amplify the message Chelsea already said, and I think hearing from somebody who I feel like I'm personally affected, I see my peers that are personally affected, and things like that. Really, I don't know. I really wanted to express that. But yeah, that's it from that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Riak? Oh, Deputy Mayor Morley has a question for you.
Thanks for joining us today, Riak, and sharing your personal experience with this really cool program. It's exciting for me to hear about. I'm just wondering if you are familiar with the Toronto Youth Cabinet at the City of Toronto, our youth advocacy-based group. Are you familiar with them at all, or have you heard of them?
I think I might have heard of them, but I'm not too familiar of them.
I just want to encourage you to learn about them and potentially get connected. It's a great opportunity to continue to advance the kind of work and advocacy and learnings that you all have done in your local community and help to keep the pressure on us at City Hall to ensure that we understand those pieces of work and that we're doing our best to implement resources and investment wherever possible at a wider scale. It's a great way also to continue to learn about how the city works and contribute your leadership and your voice to this important city building work. So I just wanted to encourage you in that way to continue to connect dots in the city and in our local communities.
Thank you so much, and thank you guys for the opportunity to even speak here today. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next deputant I have listed is Heather Pun. Heather, I understand you're online. Oh, there you are.
Yes.
Welcome.
Hello. Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I'm a member of Clean Indoor Air Toronto, a grassroots group that is advocating for indoor air quality policies. Almost 3 years ago, my son returned to in-person school into a portable classroom. I was very concerned about the indoor air quality. I started sending him with this, an AirNet CO2 detector, which continually records CO2 levels. You'll notice that the CO2 level is currently reading approximately 700 parts per million. That is considered good and indicates that there's lots of ventilation in this room. Having good ventilation means that the air changes frequently and things like infectious diseases and particulate matter don't hang in the air or get breathed into our lungs. At a level of 600, the rebreathed fraction is about 0.5%, meaning that every breath taken, only 0.5% of that has been in someone else's lungs. A member of our group brought her detector yesterday to the North York budget meeting and found levels in the 600s. The City of Toronto has an indoor air quality policy that ensures that office spaces and council chambers have sufficient ventilation, so you too should be enjoying excellent air quality. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for our schools, older buildings across Toronto, including rental apartments, and other public buildings where people have to live, work, learn, access healthcare, and play. This same sensor read levels of up to 3,500 in my son's portable classroom, 6 times the levels that we're enjoying now, and more than 4 times the 800 that is recommended in the most recent Health Canada report. Readings of CO2 at that level indicate a rebreathed fraction of approximately 7 to 8%, meaning that every 13th breath a child takes in that portable has been in someone else's lungs. Then we wonder why schools are full of sick kids who bring sickness home and into our communities and healthcare centers. When I approached TDSB about this issue, I was met with very little concern. I was told there is no IAQ policy that applies to students or schools, and that as long as the existing HVAC is working, the levels really don't trigger anything. Throughout the year, I continued to measure high levels of CO2, averaging 2,000 to 3,000 ppm every day. The following September, my son was placed again in the same portable, where on the first day recorded CO2 levels of 3,500, but TDSB dismissed my concerns again. I then turned to Toronto Public Health for help. Surely, if the City of Toronto policy recommends levels of CO2 lower than 1,000 ppm, there's a reason for it. And surely Toronto Public Health would want to protect the health of the children who have the most life to live. In March of 2025, I filed a complaint under Section 11 of the Health Prevention and Promotion Act, arguing that the extremely high CO2 levels constitute a health hazard because it indicates really poor ventilation. From their response, they said levels of CO2 above Health Canada's recommended value may cause symptoms such as dry eyes, headache, fatigue, and reduced concentration. However, these effects vary between individuals and are generally mild, temporary, and reversible once ventilation improves. As such, exceedance of this numerical value does not necessarily indicate a presence of a health hazard. But the premise of the complaint was that the high CO2 is a proxy for ventilation. So it's not just the effects of CO2, but the lack of ventilation that can cause the spread of all sorts of infectious diseases. School ventilation never improves unless policy is implemented. People are educated, or individuals like me measure it. There are no processes in place to measure classroom ventilation unless a complaint is submitted. Kids are continually subjected to this poor air quality. The same is true for many of our public buildings, hospitals, and workplaces, the places people cannot avoid and those that they should be able to enjoy. Indoor air policies are not only an accessibility issue, but also an equity issue, as many buildings with poor ventilation are typically found in less affluent neighborhoods. The city rolled out cleaner air spaces to provide relief from wildfire smoke, stating that exposure to air pollution includes irritated eyes, increased mucus production, coughing, and difficulty breathing. But again, children are at school, people are at work, and many are accessing systems in Toronto like the TTC and healthcare, where the lack of policy citywide means they are not able to get this relief. You wouldn't ask people to access clean water at only 6 spaces in the city. We shouldn't for clean air either. With the upcoming FIFA tournament, a recent article said that Toronto Public Health has flagged measles and COVID-19 as potential concerns. Both of these pathogens are airborne, meaning that they spread through the air and especially in underventilated spaces. Understanding the ventilation where these events will be held and knowing how to adjust or add filtration will make these spaces in our city safer for everyone and protect our already stressed health system. Just as the City of Toronto monitors our water, food, and outdoor air, indoor air should be monitored as well. Clean Indoor Air has 3 asks from the Budget Committee to ensure Toronto takes action: a citywide IAQ policy and bylaw that follows the latest recommendations, a program to accelerate IAQ improvement in Toronto's buildings, including incentives for HVAC upgrades, and an IAQ monitoring system that captures CO2 and PM 2.5 levels for municipal buildings and public schools and displays this data on a public website.
Heather, I'm afraid you're at time.
I'm just finished. I have one line left.
Okay.
Clean indoor air is not a luxury. It's a right protected by the World Health Organization and the United Nations. It's a time our world-class city put in world-class policies to ensure everyone has access to clean indoor air. Thank you so much for letting me finish.
Thank you, Heather. Are there any questions for Heather? No? Heather, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you.
I had 2 deputants that we tried earlier, Nihal and Giori. Are either of them, pardon me, Giori's withdrawn? And is Nihal with us? No? Okay, well, that completes our deputations for the afternoon session. If I could just have the motion. There are those gray boxes again. Oh, okay. I move that the Budget Subcommittee receive the public presentations on the 2026 capital and operating budgets for information. All those in favor, opposed, carried. We'll reconvene at 6 o'clock for the evening deputations. I want to extend my thanks to everyone who took the time to share their thoughts with us. It's an incredibly important exercise we do here. And frankly, no other government in Canada talks to as many people during their budget deputation process, and I'm very proud of that. Okay, have a great afternoon, everybody.
Thanks again for all you do. Are you in a webinar? Social planning?
Social planning.
That's
Toronto?
where I first came across
I was on a few. Yeah, I recognize your face now. I see that actually.